All right, so you've heard the anecdotes, the news has been on TV. You're asking yourself as you're looking to buy a property, how much over asking price do I need to offer? Is that right? Do you have to offer more than they're asking? Well, stick around. We're going to get into that today. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It is your realtor, Nick Isgro with eXp Realty here in Central Maine. And as I said at the beginning, today we're going to dive into this really sensitive topic that will probably be of interest to both buyers and sellers, and that is it really necessary to offer over the asking price if you really want to get your offer accepted on a home? We're going to break it down today. We're going to talk about some different scenarios and actually get into some of the numbers to see why it actually matters which house you're making the offer on, whether you're going to do that or not, and what the likely scenario is going to be of whether or not you do have to offer more than the asking price. Now, before we get into that, I do want to welcome you here to the channel. If you've never been here before, we do cover all things real estate here in the state of Maine, particularly in the Central Maine market. Now, if that is of interest to you and adds value to your process in the buying and selling of homes, or if you just have a general interest in Maine real estate, do me a favor. Go ahead and like this video, hit the subscribe button, knock that little alarm bell, and you'll be notified every time we put out new content. All right, so let's talk about normal scenario, because for decades and decades, right, it's been kind of a similar circumstance when people are going to buy a home. You're looking for a home, you approach the sellers, and you go back with your realtor, you've decided you've locked in on the house you like, and you start talking about how much less than the asking price you're going to offer. And then typically the seller would come back with a higher number, and you might meet somewhere in the middle, and that would be how a normal process of buying a home would go, and frankly selling a home would go as well. Well, let's face it, this market is anything but normal. First of all, we just know that over the last several years, including up to today, the supply and demand issue is just not going away anytime soon. In fact, the National Association of Realtors is estimating that we are short about 5.5 million units of housing in order to satisfy the current buyer demand. As we recapped here in the state of Maine, and particularly here in Kennebec County, for example, we ended last month with only 0.67 months worth of supply on the market. Now, to give you an idea of the supply and demand issue when you have less than 1 month of supply for buyers on the market, and first of all, what does that even mean? It means that if we were to sell all of the houses we have on the market today, take on no new listings, how long would it take for us to move through supply? Less than a month. An equilibrium market, a market that we would say has a little bit of balance between the buyers and the seller's advantage, would be about 6 months of supply. So you can see how far we are off there. Now, taking a look on a more global scale, as we look across the country, the National Association of Realtors is telling us that right now the average home has about 4.8 offers per house, so about 5 offers, so that's a competitive market on every house being sold, and it's taken about 17 days in the market to get those homes and get those offers available like that. Now, as we ended the month of March here in the state of Maine, and particularly here in Kennebec County, we were ending the month last month at about 32 days on the market on average before getting those offers. But there is some anecdotal evidence going on in the market that things are shifting, because we had about a 3% increase over the last month in inventory as we moved from February into March, but that's not a lot when you consider how squeezed the market currently is. So what we're seeing right now in the market, and I want to say particularly in that $200,000 to $300,000 range, is that almost every time you have a decent in-town type of house coming on, whether it's a ranch, cape, colonial, you name it, in that $200,000 to $300,000 range, we are going back to basically where we were last spring, where it's a rush of showings, it's multiple offers almost every single time. And so that's creating a competitive bid process. So you're sitting there and you're thinking, okay, so most of these offers might really be competitive bid type process. We're getting multiple offers on the home. I'm the buyer here. I'm looking at the home I want. Does that mean I have to offer more than the asking price? Well, let's get into that just a little bit. So over the last year, we've been averaging here in Central Maine really a little bit over asking price. The list to sale price ratio has been over 100%. Last month it was about 101%, which means that sellers were on average accepting offers that were 1% higher than the price that they had the home listed for. We had a couple of months in the winter, I would say back in like November, December, things slowed down a little bit, buyers found some deals, but when I say deal, we're talking 99 to 100% of the list price. There wasn't a ton of negotiating room. As we extend back before that, and it looks like we might be trending now, I'll be interested to see at the end of this month where we land, it was really 102% of asking price. So count on right now, as long as this holding pattern continues, that we're gonna start looking at 101, 102 maybe as we get further into the market, if it doesn't loosen up soon, of asking price. In order to get the competitive bid, you will probably be offering over the asking price if you really want the home. Now there's some caveats here, and I want to consider that because not every single house you look at is going to require you to offer over the asking price if you want to get the home. And this is where your realtor is really going to come in handy, because they're going to have access to all of the data and really analyze the type of house, the location, the price range, and get a little more granular with some of these statistics here. So for one thing, you have to analyze the specific market, because there are towns, even here in central Maine, that are more on the outskirts that have a slower market than somebody who frankly is buying in town Waterville or Winslow. That would be a good example. A house that's, in a suburban neighborhood, Waterville, Winslow, that starter price range is going to go probably a lot quicker than a home that might be in the more to $400,000, $450,000 range that's outside of town. Now, there's also a big difference outside of town. If you are in China and you're on the lake, it might be different than if you're in a remote area of Palermo, for example, where there's probably going to be a little bit more average days on market. So you start to look at some of these trends depending on where the specific property is that you're looking at. Another thing I want to bring up here too is that as I'm looking at the statistics for central Maine at least, and we're looking at the homes that have sold for 101, 102% of asking price, that's over the final list price that was there. If I go back and I dig into some of the statistics, and I covered this I think in the last market update, where we start looking at the original list price versus the list price that it sold at, we start to see something interesting here. Just this last month, for example, if we look at the numbers from March here in central Maine, 101% of the list price was what we ended for the sale price on average here in central Maine. If we look at the original list price, it drops down to 99%. That means that there were price reductions. Now, I don't want to get you too excited, because there are going to be less and less price reductions coming on the market, because I think we've seen a little bit of correction as far as the trend of the prices, and now we're seeing more buyers come out. We're in the spring market. There's still really limited inventory, and that pricing is naturally getting stronger. So as the prices get stronger, you're going to see less and less of those price reductions. The market's catching back up to where the prices maybe got a little bit ahead of themselves over the fall, winter, and early spring market. So how do you determine this? Well, first of all, just go out and have a lot of fun, guys. Go out, find the home that you love. And when you really locate the home that you're looking at, you're really digging into the home that you love, you get together, you decide this is the home that we want. That's where your realtor can really come in handy. Rely on their market knowledge. Most realtors that you're going to work with are going to have a decent amount of market knowledge just from the experience that they're seeing live as it's happening out in the field. Now, you don't need to panic, even if it is competitive, okay? So you want to look at the market data specific to the market that that home is in, including even if you have to, breaking it down into the price range, looking at average days on market and things like that. So some other things to consider are, you want to know ahead of time, are you in a multiple offer scenario? Because there's a big difference if you're the only one putting an offer in on the house versus if you are one of 5 to 10 people putting an offer in on the house. If you're one of 5 to 10 people, if you are in a multiple offer scenario, that's where your realtor is going to come to you and ask you to give your highest and best. And I can't really stress this enough. The highest and best means your highest and best. It means what is the most amount of money you feel you can afford and that you're willing to offer for that specific home, to the point where if you don't get the offer, you're not going to feel bad. You're going to walk away saying, look, we determined ahead of time how much we were willing to spend on the home. We got outbid on that. We gave it our best. What you don't want to happen is to not have that kind of figured out mentally beforehand, and then you lose through the process, and then you say to the realtor, well, geez, I would have offered more. If you would have offered more, you should have offered more. That's kind of the best advice I can give you. So you want to get that comfort level because it is up to you. Don't put yourself in a hole. Know what is really affordable for you and is going to allow you to continue to live the lifestyle that you want, because you don't want to spend so much that you impact your lifestyle, because that's just going to really make you resent the home that you bought. Number two, know ahead of time exactly how much you're willing to give. So if you do find yourself in that competitive offer scenario and you have to go over asking price, you put your best on the table and you're going to feel okay about it regardless of how it works out. The last thing I want to say is that there's a real underutilization I find in the market of the escalation addendum. So the escalation addendum is a document you can add to your offer so that you go in at a price that you feel is good, it's fair, this is where you want to start, but it says that you're willing to pay X amount of dollars, let's say $2,000, $5,000 more than any other offer that's received on that house up until a certain ceiling that you set. So a good example, let's say a home is listed for $195,000. You know it's probably going to be competitive, but you don't want to put yourself out there more than you need to, because what if you offer $30,000 over asking price and their next best offer was only like $5,000 over asking price? Well, you just laid out a bunch of money that you really didn't need to. So one of the things you can do is do the escalation addendum. It would say, hey, look, we're willing to offer you the $195,000 or $200,000 on the house. However, we're willing to pay $5,000 more than any other offer that you have, up to $225,000. That's just a random number. I'm throwing it out there as an example, but you get the point. This allows you to set a ceiling. It allows you to not put that money on the table ahead of time just in case you don't have to. So the escalation addendum is something that if you're in these multiple offer scenarios, you should certainly consider and be having a discussion with your realtor to see if it is the tool that is best for you if you're going to have to offer over the asking price. So that's really it, guys. That's it for the video today. The advice is that in general right now, it is a very high likelihood if you're on the market looking for a home, particularly in that $200,000 to, I would say, $400,000 range, that you're probably going to be in a situation, depending on where the home is, that you might have to offer over the asking price. You want to look at the statistics, look at the specific market the home is in, analyze the specific property, decide if it's what you need to do, and then if you do need to go over asking price, really consider the escalation addendum to save you on the upside, just in case you don't have to put all that money on the table that you would have in order to get the home. And lastly, highest and best. When your realtor asks for your highest and best, give them your highest and best. Don't leave anything on the table. So guys, I just see this market getting more and more competitive right now. It's going to be really interesting as we move in to see what happens as interest rates continue to climb. So far, they haven't had a huge impact, but that's to be seen. I think we're going to see over the next month or two how those rates are really impacting the incredible market that we've been riding for a long time right now. Does it loosen up inventory? Does it soften prices? If it softens prices, does the rate hike really make the difference so the affordability remains the same? These are questions to ask. If you guys are in the market right now, whether you've been buying or selling a home, I would love to hear what your experience is. Have you been in these multiple offer scenarios? Have you won a multiple offer scenario? Did you offer over asking price? All these things and more, drop them in the comments below. Would love to hear from you on that. Thanks so much, guys, for sticking around to the end of this video. Again, my name is Nick Isgro with eXp Realty here in Central Maine. And until next week, I'll see you next time.